Hello, dear colleagues. My name is Al Muhammad, and today we have two distal intracranial aneurysms of the right ICA, which we have treated with two flow diverters, coil embolization, and a microstent. The aneurysms were discovered incidentally, and the patient has also a blister-like aneurysm of the anterior communicating artery. The distal ICA aneurysm is fusiform on a dysplastic segment, and the proximal aneurysm is a saccular one. The patient has reported that he has headaches every now and then, 2 to 3 times per month. And here we have the list of the materials and devices that we've used. We've used a microstent Neuroform Atlas and a tetra coil. It's a very soft coil which can build a very good basket. The second coil was discarded because it was a little bit too big for the aneurysm, and we've implanted two flow diverters. Both are Surbas Evolve. And the patient has an effective dual antiplatelet therapy with Prasugrel and Aspirin. And here we have the 3D angiogram of the aneurysms. And as mentioned, the distal one is the fusiform dysplastic one, and the proximal one is the saccular one. This is the proximal saccular aneurysm. Our plan is to coil the saccular proximal aneurysm and then to implant a flow diverter all along the way from the dysplastic aneurysm to the proximal saccular aneurysm, so that we cover both aneurysms with the flow diverter. Here distally you can see the fusiform dysplastic aneurysm. And here we go. We push the long sheath neuron max with the select catheter penumbra sim into the short femoral sheath, and here we have configured the tip of the sidewinder catheter, and now we are in the right common carotid artery, and now we need a roadmap, and after that we can push the neuron max sheath a little bit distally, and we are now in the origin of the right ICA. Now we can remove the select catheter after reaching our first destination and take the intermediate catheter, Sophia 5F, and put it into the neuron max long sheath. And now we can navigate the distal parts of the ICA, and after that we can perform the 3D angiogram to see the anatomy. And this is the 3D angiogram. And now we can take our work position based on the 3D angiogram. We inject a little bit contrast agent, and we can choose the best work position and take the maximal zoom. And this is our 2D angiogram. And now we can take the microcatheter with the microwire. Here is the microwire. We push it into the microcatheter. We've shaped the tip of the microwire, and now we can navigate the distal parts of the ICA until we reach the aneurysm. And we're navigating here with the microwire, and this is the microcatheter. And now we can push the intermediate catheter a little bit distally, and now we're navigating the sac of the aneurysm with the microwire, and now we're pushing the microcatheter in the aneurysm sac. And this is the first coil. It's the big one that we've discarded. As you can see, there is a little bit tension on the coil. That's why we try to pull the microcatheter and push the coil a little bit. We're trying to build the basket. And now, as you can see, the coil is a little bit bigger than the aneurysm. We will try it a little bit, and if we see that it won't work, we can remove this coil and take a little bit smaller one. And as you can see, we were a little bit outside of the aneurysm, and with the help of the coil, we could bring the microcatheter in the aneurysm sac. As you can see, it's not stable because it's a little bit big. And here we're taking the smaller one. It's also tetra coil from Target. You need to pull the microcatheter a little bit back so that the tip of the microcatheter is at the entrance of the aneurysm, and then you can push the coil into the aneurysm sac and have a better basket. And here we're building the basket. As you can see, there is a loop in the lumen of the ICA, and that's why we won't let it like this. We will pull the coil back and re-embolizate the aneurysm. And as you can see, this is a better basket, and we will cover the aneurysm with the flow diverter. That's why we can put the coil in its place, and now we will take the microcatheter and the microwire out of the aneurysm. With the help of the pusher, we take the microcatheter back, and then we pull the pusher of the coil. And now we're taking the second microcatheter. It's a bigger one so that we can push the flow diverter through this microcatheter. And now we need to navigate the ICA, and we should avoid the aneurysm so that we don't dislocate the coil packet. And now we're navigating the right medial cerebral artery, and the microwire is already in the M2 segment, and now we're pushing the microcatheter all along the way. But as you can see, it's stopping at the bifurcation of the MCA, and that's why we need to take a little bit tension of the system, and then you can push the microcatheter. We pulled the intermediate catheter and the microcatheter, and now we can push the microcatheter in the M2 segment of the right MCA. And now we have here the first flow diverter. We need to flush it with saline. We take an epsilon connector and close it, and then we push the tube of the flow diverter in the epsilon connector and apply water saline pressure, and that's how you can flush this this flow diverter. Other flow diverters, you can just put them in the epsilon connector of your microcatheter and they will flush themselves. And now we're pushing the flow diverter. And as you can see, there is an anatomy shift, and that's why we need soon a new 2D angiogram to compensate the anatomy shift and see the distal ICA bifurcation. And now we're pulling the flow diverter a little bit back, and now we will start to unsheath the flow diverter. As you can see, the dark segment is the flow diverter, and a little bit distally there is the pusher. And now is the tip of the flow diverter at the ICA bifurcation, and now we can start unsheathing the flow diverter. This is the single shot to see the material a little bit better, and this is the 2D angiogram, and as you can see, we've covered the distal dysplastic fusiform aneurysm with the flow diverter. That's why we will continue unsheathing the flow diverter carefully. And now we've reached the no return point, and we will unsheath the flow diverter completely. And that was it. We have unsheathed the flow diverter, and now we will try to push the microcatheter through the flow diverter. And as you can see, the flow diverter slipped a little bit proximally, and the distal end of the flow diverter is at the middle of the dysplastic fusiform aneurysm, and that's why we will implant a second flow diverter to cover the distal aneurysm. And this is the second flow diverter. We will flush it in the same way, just like the first one. And now we will start to implant the flow diverter just like the first one. We are now in another branch of the MCA, but it doesn't matter. And now we will pull the flow diverter. And this is a 2D angiogram to see the anatomy a little bit better. And this is the distal end of the flow diverter, and now we have the distal bifurcation of the ICA, and we are unsheathing the flow diverter. And now we've finished unsheathing the flow diverter. And as you can see, we've covered the distal aneurysm, but we didn't like the wall opposition of the flow diverter. As you can see, there is a little bit distance between the wall of the flow diverter and the wall of the vessel, and that's why we've decided to put a microstent in the anterior cerebral artery so that we get a little bit better wall opposition. We've chosen the anterior cerebral artery because we need the way to the blister-like aneurysm of the anterior communicating artery, and through implanting the microstent in the anterior cerebral artery, we can push the wall of the flow diverter to the vessel wall, and it's a better choice than going to the medial cerebral artery. We've tried here with the intermediate catheter, we've tried to get a little bit better wall opposition, but as you can see, there is still a little bit distance between the flow diverter and the wall of the vessel. It's a little bit better, but we need a safe method, and that's why we've decided to navigate and implant the microstent in the anterior cerebral artery. We've taken the ICA microwire because we need a little bit soft material to navigate this very sharp curve. And now we will push the microcatheter in the origin of the anterior cerebral artery in the A1 segment. We will take the microwire back, and now we can take the microstent. It's Neuroform Atlas. It has two markers, a distal one and a proximal one. We will take the microstent a little bit proximally so that we can see this C shape. And now we are starting unsheathing the microstent. And now we're reaching the proximal end, and that's how we've implanted the microstent. And now we can take our microcatheter and the pusher of the microstent out. And now we need to look if we reached the wall opposition that we were looking for. And as you can see, it's a very better wall opposition. And now we need a big overview to see our results. And as you can see, there's no vessel occlusions, no extravasation, no complications. And the proximal aneurysm is occluded already. And after putting our material, we can see the anatomy a little bit better, and we can make other view angles. And as you can see, on the left one it's before, and on the right one is after putting the microstent. It's a better result. In this particular intervention, we wanted to show you how to handle difficult situations, not only perfect treatments and flow diverter implantations. So we've reached the end of our intervention. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. You can contact us with email to email addresses, and further contact options are in the video description. Thanks for watching. That was Al Muhammad. Peace out.